Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Based on the functional behavior assessment, we concluded that Kayla engages in challenging behaviors such as throwing objects, screaming, and dropping down the floor to gain access to her preferred item. And then we also identified iPad as her most preferred item. We talked about the purpose and the procedures of the FCT intervention last week. Let me briefly review it again.
Okay.
You can refer to the sheet.
Okay.
At the beginning of the session, you will provide the iPad for 30 seconds and then say, okay, it's time to do something different and remove the iPad. If Kayla appropriately hands the picture card to you, you will give her specific praise such as, good job asking for the iPad nicely, then reinstate the iPad for 30 seconds. If Kayla does not respond within 5 seconds, you will physically prompt her to hand the picture card to you and then provide specific verbal praise and the iPad. If Kayla engages in challenging behavior upon removal of the reinforcer, you will wait for 5 seconds before prompting her to hand the picture card again. So do you have any questions about the intervention procedures?
No, I don't think so.
All right, our goal is implementing all 7 steps of the FCT intervention with 100% accuracy for 3 consecutive times. In the last week's meeting, you mentioned that implementing all the 7 steps without skipping any step was pretty challenging. Contingent on appropriate responding, you perfectly reinstated the iPad, but were worried about you might forget to provide her a specific praise, such as, yeah, good job.
Yeah.
You didn't miss this week. Yeah. Do you think reviewing the procedure checklist was helpful?
Yeah, I reviewed it before the session and attached it on the desk as you recommended. I also highlighted praise on the checklist, and I think that helped me a lot to remember all step-by-step procedures.
Awesome. When Kayla engages in challenging behavior upon removal of the iPad, you also did a great job waiting for a 5-second break in her behavior before prompting appropriate communication. Did you have any challenges in redirecting her to appropriately ask for the iPad?
Waiting for the 5-second break in challenging behavior and ignoring all instances were not easy for me. I felt like I needed to do something to stop her rather than just ignoring her behavior.
I understand that just ignoring is sometimes more difficult than immediately intervening. Since her challenging behavior has been maintained by gaining access to the iPad, it is important to break this chain and then let her know that challenging behavior will be no longer being forced. Instead, you are teaching her a socially appropriate way to achieve the same function, which is iPad.
Compared to last week, she engaged in challenging behavior less frequently and it didn't last long. I think it's because she is getting to know there's another easy way to have the iPad back.
Glad to hear that you noticed her progress. You implemented all the steps and did not miss anything, but used them to provide her with the iPad less or more than 30 seconds. How did you measure the time? Did you have any difficulties?
I kind of just roughly counted the numbers in my head. I think that's why it was a little inaccurate.
Do you think using a timer will be helpful?
Yes, I do. I actually thought about using the one I have, but I didn't use it because of its sound. It's kind of loud. If the timer rings every 30 seconds, I thought Kayla would be distracted by the sound. Do you have any ideas?
How about using a motivator? If you set up a time and put it in your pocket, it will just vibrate.
Yeah, I've also considered using my iPhone. If I can see the time on the screen, it doesn't need to vibrate.
It may not be a good idea considering that it has similar features to the iPad and it was identified as our preferred item before.
Yeah, that's true. That would be distracting to Kayla.
If you want to try a motivator, I will bring it next week. Do you need any other materials?
I don't think so. Thank you for asking.
All right, then I will see you next time. Thank you.
See you next week.
Thanks.